Hello, everyone, and and welcome to our second episode of the Roofless Dog and Pony Show. So, based on the success of our first episode last week, we just decided to do a second show today, and we are completely unprepared. But the reason why we're doing this is because we want to give you the presentation of the inspiration for tomorrow's webinar, which is titled MASKIES. So we have some viewers already joining us, and that's exciting. And this is how this is going to work. We're going to do a presentation using slides of why we came up with this assignment and the conceptual reasoning behind it. And then after that, we're just going to see who is still there, and we're just going to interact with you, because what we are going to do with the video is we're going to save it so you can watch it again, and then we're going to upload it in our very brand new YouTube channel so you can also watch it there. So we're just going to keep the presentation at the very beginning, and then we're going to get the Q&A questions. We're going to read your comments, and we're going to ask you questions. So again, completely unprepared. I should have done a lot of work before speaking, but anyhow, so this is totally unscripted. This is grammatically not perfect. We have a tendency of inventing new words, so hopefully our discourse, I guess, or presentation or lecture, whatever you want to call it, will be intelligible. And here we go. So I'm just going to start sharing some slides so we can start talking about the first one. It's just basically our cover for the painting webinar. It's called MASKIES. It's a silly hashtag that started when people started taking pictures of themselves wearing masks. We chose an image of an individual from 1918, an American person who decided to be creative with the masks that they started wearing during the pandemic of 1918, the so-called Spanish flu, although it didn't come from Spain, but it ended up being named like that. But they call it the influenza pandemic, I guess. Okay, so also we haven't triple checked or triple fact-checked our sources and our information. So we give it to you. We'll leave it to you to do that. But basically, we're just going to use whatever information we have heard or read and just dump it. But yeah, so people, the point of this cover is that people were already creative with their masks. And we noticed that at the very beginning of our pandemic, people started to be creative, use masks as medium for their creative expression. So this precisely, it's a nice way to connect to people from 100 years ago, and in the sense that they also did that. They used embroidery and other mediums to create beautiful pieces of clothing. So I'm going to jump to early in the pandemic, because there is a very specific image that hopefully I downloaded. Yeah, I don't see it. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, nope. So, well, it's not there. So this is not good. My mistake. So this is not good. Anyhow, so I'm just gonna basically talk about it. I don't have the image, but in Barcelona in February, actually, a very big mobile conference was supposed to take place, and it was big news that it was canceled. It was one of the first major events world wide, I guess, or with worldwide audience that got canceled. So there was an artist, a street artist, who depicted the Mona Lisa wearing a face mask and also taking a picture of herself wearing the face mask. It went viral, and people started taking pictures of that piece. And so no one expected, or no one thought that what was going to happen after. But it was very telling in the sense that things were just going to basically be much different. I got this slide. This was years before. It's not Banksy, but an artist, depicted the girl with a pearl earring, painting monochromatically, and this is an actual piece of clothing that was glued on the wall. So this was not 2020. I think it was 4 years ago, but I thought it was interesting in the sense that masks have been vehicles for conceptual expression, I guess, for years. So not just because now we're in the midst of this disaster, but also because conceptually they represent or they transcend the viral aspect. So let me see if I can bring something else to talk about. So perhaps, let me just bring this. So there's a museum. I just found this museum, and this was early as well. Let me see if I can just bring the references. Here we go. So it's the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge in the UK, and just as many other museums around the world, it was forced to close the doors to the public in March following the lockdown in the UK, which came later than the rest of Europe, I guess. So what they decided to do is something really interesting. So in order to continue to raise, I guess, money or become still visible, they started incorporating masks to paintings in their permanent collection, and they did it in a way in which the mask got integrated with the rest of the painting. So I thought this was interesting, not just because it's the fact of putting a mask on top of a painting, which is what the artists in Barcelona did at the very beginning of the pandemic, but now there is a new layer, or a new creative layer, I guess, in which someone decided to find a way of integrating the mask as if the mask was worn by the actual person or subject in the painting. So talk about like a new historical, I guess, layer in this concept. So this is a pre-Raphaelite painting, John Everett Millais, The Bridesmaid. And so notice that the mask matches the blouse of the painting, and I thought it was beautiful. So it doesn't it doesn't say, the credits don't say who did this, but it would be interesting to know the artist behind this concept, because I think it's really brilliant. Another one, let me see if I can move this. I cannot move it, I guess. I can't. So anyhow, you cannot see it. But yeah, this is another painting from the Fitzwilliam Museum. And these are the daughters of Sir Matthew Decker, a painting by Dutch artist Jan van Meyer in 1718. And each of the daughters is wearing a mask that has been added on as if they were actually wearing it when the painting was done. So you can see now that what we're trying to do with this assignment, or with this painting webinar tomorrow, is use the mask as an artistic expression of something that transcends the virus, because we realized at the very beginning of this pandemic, people were sharing pictures of themselves in social media wearing a mask, and we felt there was an underlying positive intention behind those images. People wanted to show what they look like wearing something new. So now we're in a different place, but at the very beginning in the pandemic, things were looking good. People thought that wearing a mask was something that was positive, and beyond the protective capabilities, I guess, or the fact that you would protect other people. There was the fashion aspect. There was the fact that, we look different. There was the fact that there was a different way of interacting with each other. And we liked that. We thought this was cool. It was done before, 100 years ago. So now it kind of like exploded. And then designers, I would say not designers first, but artists started to craft and create their own masks at home. And they started being creative with them, different fabrics. Designers after that caught on the trend, and then they started manufacturing masks. And now masks are the most famous, the most famous fashion accessory in the world right now. So anyhow, so I also wanted to bring images of a very interesting artist. His name is Dewey Han. And because we kind of like think we were very Western-like in the sense of thinking that everything creative's coming from the Western world. But this is a powerful, amazing, and very interesting artistic expression of what's going on, done by an artist, a Chinese artist, in a chapel in Wuhan, in China. So I don't have my context. I don't have a lot of context to sort of like explain what this is basically, or the reasoning behind it. But the thing is that there's a chapel in Wuhan, I guess. I don't know the condition of it, but there's a chapel, and in which the walls are completely blank. And this artist got commissioned to paint a mural, a fresco inside of the chapel, and he decided to depict healthcare workers wearing protective gear. It looks like a very Western-like kind of chapel. And then what he did is that in each and every part of the space, he painted all the kinds of like figures wearing protective. Okay, we're back. Artist / designer, but divides his time between Shanghai and LA. Created this mural called "The Saints." The Saints Wear White, and it's set inside a historic chapel in the Hubei province of China, which is where the epidemic started out. This artwork was designed to pay homage to the coronavirus medical workers who are wearing white decontamination suits and green face masks. And this was early, I think this was February or March as well. But yeah, I just thought it was really cool and interesting, and a way of turning a contemporary issue into a subject for a painting or a performance or an installation. So yeah, very interesting. In that sense, I just found another Chinese artist, and he works with photography and photographic compositions, I guess. So this is Tommy Fung, and an artist from Hong Kong, and he created a series of coronavirus-inspired artworks from using images and making montages. And this one I found really cool because it depicts a bunch of people trying to grab some masks, and this is when there were not enough masks in the world, and no one started making them. So yeah, I just think that reminds me of a time when things were different, basically. So what else do I have? This is another artist. It's a little bit more conceptual, but very interesting, very controversial. He created a series of photographs titled How to Survive a Deadly Global Virus, and people had different reactions to these images. A lot of people thought they were insensitive and tone deaf because what he did is basically make fun of... I don't think he was making fun of people wearing masks. We were not there yet. But I think conceptually he wanted to confront and be controversial, I guess, in thinking that this alone maybe could stop the virus. I don't know. So what he ended up doing is creating a series of images of people wearing stupid objects to protect themselves from the virus. It'd be interesting to find out what you think about this later when we open the Q&A, I guess. But I just don't find them controversial, specifically because I think if we contextualize them at the very beginning, when there was so much misinformation about what to do and how to protect ourselves and others against this virus, I just feel like this was the perfect vehicle or the perfect premise for an artist to make fun of the situation. So here's another one as well. I think they're hilarious. He has a bunch on his website. I think I've shown... no, I haven't shown this one. Yeah, so let me see if I can find some information about this. So these are homemade face masks that were the inspiration behind the series of tongue-in-cheek photographs produced by Namibian-German visual artist Max Siedentopf in his controversial series How to Survive a Deadly Global Virus. Quote, I started seeing online all kinds of DIY masks to protect against the virus, which were made of common household objects, he tells BBC Culture. In the middle of this crisis, I wanted to focus on the creativity of these masks and how through a barrier or problem you can still find smart and creative solutions. Well, here you go. I think that perfectly kind of like explains or connects the creative aspect and how his intent was not to mock or to be tone deaf, but to see or... And I remember those images. There were images when we were not affected yet here. There were images coming out of China that they reminded me of the people of Walmart images where... there were groups of people or individuals depicted wearing all kinds of objects to protect themselves, like the empty water gallon, I guess. So, anyhow, so another example of how masks have been used in this past few months as subject matters for creative projects. So now, basically, I'm just going to go to a not so positive aspect of this inspiration presentation. And this is an article that appeared in The Week. And that was pretty remarkable. It was the very beginning of this mask debacle. The article... titled The Strange Conflation of Masks and Masculinity. And an artist, they don't say the name of the artist, so he or she or they took this image from the Wizard of Oz movie and they did some changes. So you can notice there are three changes in the image. The Trump 2020 sticker on the Tin Man, Dorothy's wearing... Make America Great Again cap, and the Cowardly Lion is wearing a mask. So I loved this article because it tried to explain the reason why men in particular or started to refuse to wear masks, and it was all basically because they felt their masculinity was being emulated. I think that's the term. So even though scientists and public figures repeatedly said that the reasons why you should wear masks are A, B, and C, there were a lot of men, one in particular, who refused and still refuses to set an example and wear masks. And for me, this was the beginning of this mask war. The fact that some groups of people around the world, I should say, not just here, but around the world, they just picked up on that aspect and ran with it. And they decided that this was not about science, it was about freedom. And so slowly but surely, and I would say not so slowly because it was really fast, what happened was that all of a sudden here we are in a battle, in a cultural civil war between two factions. People who wear masks, symbolizing, I guess, or involuntarily representing a set of ideals and political views, and another faction, very small but very loud, representing something completely opposite. So to hell with the scientific argument. So now this is part of the culture war, I guess. And I don't think this is an anecdote. I think these are the kinds of things that are used as wedges to divide us, and it's just gonna get worse. So we put two and two together. We put the fact that masks were a medium for creative expression, and now they are a political symbol. And we decided to now do a self-portrait of ourselves, a self-portrait basically, wearing a mask, because it may not have been politically significant at the very beginning, and no one really anticipated that this was gonna become political. But now that it is political, we wanna be part of it and show that our standing in this war is on the side or supporting the side of science, and also against toxic masculinity, because there's this other component, I think, of people not wearing masks. It's not just about freedom. It's about hiding your political views behind a fragile masculinity facade, if you will. And then someone's calling, so that's not very good. Let me see if I can stop this. That's not, so it's just gonna happen. Okay, well, 1 second. All right, so maybe that's the perfect time right now because I don't have any more images. I don't have any more images. I thought oh yeah, I do have more images, and these are actually mean images, because one of the fascinating things about this political debacle is seeing some of the signs that people have crafted to argue that it's not okay to wear masks. So I couldn't help but being mean in shaming the other side through bringing some images of the stupid signs that people have been flaunting in order to defend their views. I'm not going to go into detail, but this is pretty self-explanatory, and yeah, I mean, it's the masks, but it's also more than that. What's really interesting is the co-opting of messages from one side and then making them arguments to the other side. For example, using the abortion issue and just bringing the mask into the equation, which I think it's pretty offensive. But anyhow, so another one, again, freedom supersedes science, and I'm just gonna basically leave it like that. So this concludes the presentation, inspiration, and I don't have any more slides. So if you're still there and you want to ask any questions, so go ahead. One thing that I wanted to say is that we've had some discussions about how people look like in masks. Are people more beautiful wearing masks or less beautiful wearing masks? I've read some comments about the fact that when you cover your mouth and your nose, there's more obviously focus on your eyes, so that just brings a different experience with interacting with the face, and some people like that. They actually find people more beautiful when they wear masks. So do you have any questions about it? Are you going to join us tomorrow? The painting webinar is at 11 a.m. We're going to be there for 3 hours, and everyone's welcome. We're going to take pictures of ourselves wearing masks and then creating a painted portrait. Basically, yeah. So, no questions. Wonderful. So this was great. So thanks for being there and for putting up with phone calls and lack of slides that I wanted to show. But we promise we'll be more prepared next week, every Thursday, 11 a.m. We'll be here. We have no idea what the next painting webinar is going to be next Friday. But we promise we'll be here explaining the inspiration and the reasoning behind it. So thanks so much for watching, and yeah. Good question. So someone's asking if they should decorate their masks, and I think the answer is yes. Why not? Absolutely. I think that could be a great idea. So if you have a mask but it's not bedazzled enough, absolutely, you can just be creative and do something with it. Why not? Yeah, I think that's actually going to be more interesting, in fact. And it's not just going to be focusing on the actual selfie. Oh, and the word maskie, it's a combination of mask and selfie. So it's one of those silly words, but effective words, I guess. So we don't know if this word's going to get picked up by any dictionary, but maybe it will. And then we're going to look like we're ahead of the trend, you guys. So yeah, so any other questions? Yeah, we're going to work with the phone, basically, unless you have a printer at home that works. Who has a color printer at home that has enough ink? I don't know, but I'll give you 5 stars if you do. And we don't recommend anyone leaving their homes, obviously, because we're on the edge of another lockdown because of what's going on. So we're going to use our phones, our smartphones, to take the selfie, and then we'll work off of that. Yeah. There are questions. Yeah. So, yeah. We're not going to post this section in our YouTube channel, obviously, because when we download the video, all your comments are not featured. And it just looks like I'm talking to myself, basically. But this will be cut out, but it's a good opportunity if you guys are there still, which some of you are. And if you're not there and you're watching this later, so what you can do also is leave comments on the post that's going to happen. And then we'll just answer your notes. thank you. 30 minutes. Perfect timing. That's the length of our show. Episode 2 is in the can. I don't know how I feel about this one, but we'll get better. We won't have the technical glitches that we're having right now. Yeah. So, bye. Thank you. All right. This is it. Until next Thursday, Roofless Dog and Pony Show, Episode 3, 11 a.m. on Thursday. Have a good rest of the week and weekend. Bye. And 4th of July. Bye.